This week on Arizona Illustrated, to the world, she was Eleanor Roosevelt. To one Arizonan, she was simply my grandmother.
This woman had touched people in every corner of the earth.
Dunbar School memories.
Would be kids coming out of each one of these rooms.
Pieces of time.
Looking through the archives, I felt a deep connection to my history and my roots.
And traffic control, 80s style.
3:45, we start putting them down. Then 5:45, we start picking them up again.
Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McLemore. The flat open areas in mesquite bosques surrounding the Tanque Verde Wash east of Tucson have a long history of ranches and riding centers and equine sports facilities, a tradition that continues today in this beautiful area. As always, the Arizona Public Media crew and I continue to be cautious by wearing masks and keeping our distance due to the ongoing coronavirus crisis. Now, on this episode of Arizona Illustrated, you'll hear memories and recollections from Arizona's past. But first, here's a COVID-19 update. Arizona's new cases, new deaths, people being tested, and the percentage of those testing positive continue to decline, prompting an executive order by Governor Ducey lifting local mask mandates. However, Pima County, the city of Tucson, and the University of Arizona announced their mask mandates will remain in place. And while vaccinations continue to rise, demand for the shots in Pima County continues to outpace supply. For information regarding vaccinations, visit azdhs.gov. Eleanor Roosevelt is considered by many to be the most influential American woman of the 20th century. As President Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt's wife, she was intimately involved in some of the most important events of American history: the Great Depression, World War II, the Civil Rights Movement. An activist for human rights and dignity from within the White House and beyond, she was recognized and loved around the world. But there were a lucky few who knew her like no other.
I knew Eleanor Roosevelt as my grandmother. I didn't know she was really famous. I knew lots of people knew her, but I assumed a lot of people knew older people because they'd been around longer. And I had no idea that she was as famous as she was, but she was just my grandmother.
Nina Roosevelt Gibson spent much of her childhood with Eleanor Roosevelt, who lived right next door.
She was wonderful as a grandmother. She put us first. In Hyde Park, when dignitaries would come and visit, we would have a formal meal, dinner, whatever. After dinner, it didn't matter what the dignitary wanted to do. And this could be a king or queen of another country. It didn't matter what they wanted to talk about. That was the time that if there were grandchildren present, which often there were, she would get out a book she'd been reading to us and read a few chapters before we all went off to bed.
Others Eleanor put first were women and minorities. She championed for both through public policy and by her own example.
I had one of the first black dolls, and I loved it. But friends would come over and they'd be terrified of that doll, and I couldn't understand why. It just never occurred to me. Growing up with my grandmother, things like that just didn't occur to you because there were people of all colors there, and they were all welcomed.
Eleanor came from a family of leaders challenged by trying times. She, her husband and distant cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and her uncle, President Teddy Roosevelt, as one family, touched more American lives than any family in history.
Eleanor Roosevelt had been her husband's liberal conscience, always urging him to do what she saw as the right thing. During her last years, she served her country and her party in the same role. Over the next decade, she continued her work on behalf of civil rights, championing integration of the armed forces, applauding the integration of the schools, publicizing instances of discrimination, supporting the Freedom Riders, and ignoring the death threats that never stopped coming her way.
Nina recalls that while Eleanor never showed it publicly, these battles took their toll.
My grandmother used to go into the bathroom and turn on the faucet and have a cry, and then turn off the faucet, wipe her face, and come out, and she was going forward. And she taught me to do the same thing when I was little.
Nina grew up in one of the most famous families in America. Yet in some ways, her childhood was similar to that of many children of the era, especially at family meals with her uncles.
And at dinner time, we heard a lot of conversations, many of which went right over our heads. My father at that time was the only Republican, and the others were still Democrats, so we had booming discussions between the brothers and my father at the dinner table, arguing back and forth. And as children, we picked up quite a bit of what they were saying. We didn't really understand it all, but we were never sort of pushed away from any kind of conversation. We rarely talked about FDR in the past. So when I was in college, I took a course on FDR and the New Deal.
As a delegate to the United Nations and chairperson of the Human Rights Commission, Eleanor Roosevelt gave speeches throughout the world. At times, Nina accompanied her grandmother. On one especially enlightening trip to Isfahan, Iran, they came upon a beggar outside a hut by the side of the road.
We stopped, as other visitors did, and we got out of the car, and we went over, and we were talking to the man, and we had interpreters. And my grandmother had not been introduced, but she said to him, "We have brought you, we were going to have a picnic, and so we have brought you some picnic foods. Would you like them?" And the man, suddenly tears came to his eyes, and he said, "Mrs. Roosevelt." Now, nobody had told him her name, but he heard her voice. And he was blind, so he couldn't see her, but he knew that voice. That was the moment I realized that this woman had touched people in every corner of the earth, and touched them with love.
Eleanor had even touched Tucson, Arizona during 2 visits in the 1950s. Her experience then would foreshadow Nina's own journey here decades later.
Just before we came, I was packing things to move to Arizona, and I have a lot of letters from my grandmother over the years. And I just happened to open one up, which I do that frequently just to kind of reminisce or whatever. And it was a letter talking about staying at the Arizona Inn and going to the Desert Museum and how lovely it was and how much she really enjoyed Tucson. So I thought, oh good, I will enjoy Tucson as well.
Eleanor Roosevelt passed away in 1962, shortly after celebrating her 78th birthday, with a party for children only.
The Dunbar School, northwest of downtown, was Tucson's only segregated school for more than 30 years. Desegregated in 1951 with a name change, it closed for good in 1978. Now, while segregation left painful wounds, many African American children were able to persevere and thrive through the adversity. Barbara Lewis was a Dunbar student for 8 years. Today, she's busy seeing that the school's impact is remembered.
My name is Barbara Lewis, and I attended Dunbar Segregated School from 1942 through 1950. I remember this room being my first grade room. It's familiar and I can remember it, and but it's now used for storage at the moment. My teacher was Miss Carter. I love that name. And actually, I remember now talk about a soft and loving teacher she was. I found a picture of me. I think I must have been 6 or 7. And I think it was when my mother had a beauty shop downtown, and there was a studio called Gabusi's, and I think he must have just said, "Come on in, little one, let me take a picture of you, because I've got an ice cream cone I'm hiding here." Look at that. Those pants are all big, that belt's all, and those shoes. I never had friends until I started attending school. We were just kind of like isolated, and my folks didn't let us run around and make many friends. So this was like my friends and my little family, and I was so happy to be with them. There was Edwina, me, Herman, Ed Sparks, Bert Preston, Tina. Oh, I could go on, but yeah, I remember them all. We were very happy children. I don't think we realized that we got the only books we had was used books when other schools were through with them, or that we were really deprived. I think if that's all you know, that's all you know. And this is the principal's office, but my goodness, it's so much smaller than I remember. It used to look so big to me because, well, I was little, I guess. I talked all the time. I talked constantly. I think I came here talking constantly. And, you know, okay, Barbara Hollins, go to the principal's office. This is the electrical room now. It used to be, we didn't have a cafeteria as such, but Miss Warrior would cook on burners. We were especially happy on Thursdays because that was Chili Bean Thursday, and we loved it. We pay a nickel for our little lunches and find a place to eat them. This arch is, I'd say it's kind of like our auditorium or our assembly hall, because we didn't have one to begin with. And we'd have all kinds of celebrities, African-American ones that would come to town. Parents that had a profession would come to talk. And we'd line up from under this arch all the way down to the end of the hallway would be kids coming out of each one of these rooms. We would have our Christmas parties for everybody here. It really is nostalgic when I stand here and look down, or when I come this way and look up, because this was our main space until we got an auditorium on the other side. This was 1950. That's me. And let's see, this is my best girlfriend. This, oh, I had 2 boyfriends. I'd interchange them. And they were best friends. This is Ed Sparks and Bert Preston. Yeah, I'd alternate. You don't want to hear that story. This is our teacher, Mr. Todd, and he's 103 this year. And he's still, as far as I know, clear-headed. He was a wonderful teacher, such a nice man. And I can say that they did good because the majority of each one of those classes The kids are professionals. A lot of doctors, engineers, out from that Dunbar School, which is amazing to me. I don't know, I felt warm and wanted. This is the only school we could go to in those early grades. And this is the only school that black teachers could teach, was here. We were all in this together. The funny thing was that as soon as we got out ninth grade, graduated ninth grade, we went to integrated Tucson High. If I had a magic wand, I would have it completed soon. I'd have enough money where we could finish our library, finish our museum, shore up some of the defects that have happened over the years with the earth moving, and we'd have a lot of activities because we do have a lot of room. I'd like for it to be many things, but for the legacy to remain. I do not want a legacy of separatism, but just let it be known what it was. But we want to be better than that. I'll always love this building. I mean, no matter what happens, but we're going to see to it that it stands another 100 years.
Barbara Lewis is still on the Dunbar Coalition board and reports that while the pandemic slowed their efforts, renovation continues, and her teacher, Mr. Todd, now 105 years old, is still doing well. Beginning in 1968, Tucson dealt with its rush hour traffic by turning the center lane of several streets into a one-way lane. Each weekday morning and again in the afternoon, these express lanes would ostensibly allow for more traffic where and when needed. But it's how those lanes appeared and vanished each day that's the subject of this installment of From the Vault.
I get up at 5.
And be to work by 6. Then we leave the shop about 25 after, be out there, get the cones all ready. Then we start putting them out.
6:45, we put them down. 8:45, we start picking up. We're usually off the road at 9.
Or a minute
right
or two
after.
after or something. But usually about 9. It's timing and rhythm, yeah. The speed on how fast you swing your arm to accord and how fast you're going.
He's the best one we've got.
About 4.5 miles we got to do, and kind of wonder the first time you do it whether you're going to get it done in 15 minutes. We had the chair made so we can switch sides depending on whether we're picking up or putting down. That way traffic's never behind us.
There's a lot of people around here that, you know, enjoy us.
Yeah. There's a lot of people when we're putting out the cones, like mainly in the afternoon, they'll say, it's not 4 o'clock yet. You know, they'll tell me it's not 4 o'clock. I'm like, yeah, but it takes 15 minutes to put these cones on the road. You can't just start at 4 o'clock and have them down at 4 o'clock.
Also says no left turns when cones in place. It doesn't specify what time.
Yeah. can do it at 30 miles an hour.
He can. 23 is my top. 30 picking up, but 23 is top for putting down.
3:45, we start putting them down. Then 5:45, we start picking them up again. Then we're it for the day until the next day.
The Arizona State Museum's photographic collection of Southwest American Indian culture dates back over 100 years, not long after the invention of photography. But the images are far more than just a visual record. They're a powerful window in time for the museum staff and for Arizona's indigenous people.
I'm Janelle Weekly, and my position is Curatorial Specialist Senior in care of the photo collections at Arizona State Museum. That means just making sure that they're kept safe and accessible to the public. Broadly, our collection covers the cultures of the Southwest, so all the indigenous communities. There's 22 tribes in Arizona, and we have photo documentation of all of the communities. Also, archaeology that's been done in Arizona and the Southwest. This is a set of 8mm films from 1936 to about 1942. We also have videos. Some of the films aren't in super great condition, and the only thing that will arrest that and slow it down is to put them in a freezer. So these are orotones, and they're on glass. To get the gold tone, either banana oil with gold pigment or gold leaf are used, and it gives it a real three-dimensional quality and very luminous quality. Both of these images are by William Dinwiddie, who swung through here in the mid-1890s, and this one's out at the Tohono O'odham community, probably near Sonneveer. And we know the woman is named Joanna Victoriana, which is really wonderful to have a photo that old and we know her name. And this one is a group of Apache people, probably near San Carlos. I think this is our oldest print, and it's a stereograph. The image is by Timothy O'Sullivan. It's from 1873. Helga Tyvis was the Arizona State Museum's photographer for 30 years. These are some of the ones by Helga, the Tohono O'odham people. Her photographs probably make up easily a third of our collections, and she documented pottery making, agriculture, you name it. She would go to the communities and get permission to photograph. So Rupert and Gia made 3 pots, and she documented every phase of each of those 3 pots. Her work touched so many lives, and she created such beauty for every single person she photographed. I think we have a legacy of the colonial white people coming out here, and I think we've over the years been really good about working more closely with the tribes instead of telling them. We're better at listening to them. I'm sure we have a long way to go. We have our Southwest Native Nations Advisory Board, and it's a group of members from each of the tribal communities in Arizona. Once a year they come and we present about what exhibits and public programs we have coming up, and we seek their advice.
Grandma was born in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so around this time she was probably an infant.
So I teach the history and culture of Yaqui people. It's offered at the reservation. We can offer it tuition free to our community members. I think when they come in here and they're looking at these photographs, a lot of just the general histories we talk about start fitting in, or that at least they can see how their families were part of that era that we just talked about. Yes, some of these photographs might have been taken during a questionable time, or should have they been taking pictures in the first place. We really do have to be careful. Just got to be critical of everything and find what you need. I think that when our students are able to understand that and be able to use that for their own purpose, their own work, their own learning path, I think it's great.
I didn't even know this existed until I took Annabelle's class. Looking through the archives, I felt a deep connection to my history and my roots, and it really was profound to know that I have a history and I have roots and I come from a tribe. It's a good feeling to know that.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.